Hello, it's Michelle Jimmer here from Equality Pays, and welcome to this training workshop on pregnancy and maternity rights. And what we're going to focus on in this workshop is 4 things that employers should know about pregnancy law. Now, the aim of this video training is to give you a basic overview of what your responsibilities are for pregnant staff and staff on maternity leave. And the way that I'm going to frame it today is I'm not going to look too much at, legal obligations. I'm not going to be just reading through things, but I want to identify 4 simple ways or things that you need to think about when managing pregnant staff. And it's all about minimizing the risk of making mistakes that could land you in tribunals. So the core message for this training is that managing pregnant staff is only expensive and difficult if you don't know what you are doing or you have no one to guide and support you while you are doing it. And so why are you here today? Well, according to the Equality and Human Rights Commission, their recent report, on average 54,000 women every year lose their job due to pregnancy and or maternity discrimination. And so just thinking about those numbers alone, that happening every single year, that has a massive, massive cost, both for individual businesses, but also the economy. And that is something that we have to address. As employers, as line managers and business owners. That's a business leak that is really, really, really unnecessary, as well as unlawful. It's very unnecessary. And so you might be here because you see yourself in that problem number somewhere. So either you've made mistakes in the past, it's made you feel uneasy, uncomfortable, and you've either had to pay some kind of financial penalty and you don't want to make that mistake again, or you simply want to be able to manage somebody who's pregnant with confidence and know what you're doing is right. Or it might be that you've never had to manage pregnant staff before. It might be that you are a business that's expanding and you've either, never had any female staff, or just simply that you've never had pregnant staff before. Or you could be, a line manager that's moved to a different business and you've never had to deal with any pregnant staff. Or you might be a business that simply, you've seen the figures and you know that costs money, and you want to save your business time and money, so you want to know what it is that you need to do and get it right when you're doing it. So if you see yourself in any of those scenarios or anything similar to that, then you're obviously in the right place. Now, what today is not about, it is not about me making judgments about, the decisions that you've made in the past. It's not about finger pointing, and it's not about making you feel bad about any past actions or any thoughts and feelings that you might have around pregnant women working. That's not what today is about. Today is simply about being able to share with you 4 simple tips or tricks or things to think about and to have at the forefront of your mind when it comes to managing pregnant staff. So let's dive straight in. So the first thing really is to say, tip number 1 is, look after your staff. Now the first question I want to ask is, what common assumptions do we have about pregnant women? What are the images and the thoughts that we see in the media, in dramas, in soaps? Now, I've just got a few things here. Some people, like to portray pregnant women as crazy, that they're suddenly, just gone loopy, making stupid comments, being really forgetful. Another one is, people always talk about cravings, this idea that, that suddenly you just want really weird things like, cheese and custard, or just that they can be very irritable or highly emotional or irrational. Now, I'm not saying that that's definitely not true, because, people, some women do have weird cravings. It might be that they're craving something in particular that they don't usually eat, or it might be that they do actually want to eat cheese and custard together. And sometimes, pregnant women can be irritable. And, it's emotional timing, it can be emotional. So I'm not saying that these things aren't true, but these are, the common assumptions that we have about pregnant women. And so it's important that when you are managing pregnant women at work, it's important to recognise what are actual assumptions and to recognise them for what they are, and that is purely an assumption of what pregnant women are like. Every woman's pregnancy is different, and just as every woman is different, so how they're going to be during their pregnancy, is going to be, vastly different to somebody else. So try to bear in mind that these things that we see in dramas and soaps and documentaries are, they're common assumptions, but that doesn't mean that your staff is going to be like that. So I don't want you to kind of get into a panic as to how, somebody is going to be. And so, what I would like you to do is to think about, with the common assumptions that we see in the media, how many of these have actually been true in your experience? And it might be that, more often than not, the things that you can see on the screen are things that don't really happen. And if they do, it's not like it's the entire pregnancy. It might be one incident. And so when we're talking about looking after your staff, we're talking about what your responsibilities are. Because it's easy to forget that being pregnant is physical work, and at times it can be physically demanding. So if you add all of that and then add into the mix the emotional impact of, creating a life and kind of having your family life turned upside down and being changed, add to the fact that, they're coming to work and they need to be in the work, and, they will want to be in work. But all of these things thrown into the mix can make pregnancy difficult. And I'm not saying that it's going to be the same for everyone. Some people do seem to breeze through it and have a great time and manage everything, and some people may struggle. But it's your responsibility to look after your staff. And so as an employer or a line manager, you have a duty of care. Now, obviously you look after all your staff anyway, but you have, those extra things that you need to think about when you've got pregnant staff. And that makes sense not only from a legal perspective, and we'll talk through what the legal aspects are in a bit, but just a business common sense perspective as well. It makes sense, somebody's pregnant, you look out for them. And so, I've just put something up that I think is really important, that, duty of care plus loyalty plus common sense equals happier pregnant staff. And a happier pregnant member of staff is less likely to feel anxious and stressed, and less likely to bring that kind of anxiety and stress into the workplace. And it's less likely that you'll then have to deal with, the kind of fallout or the consequences of that. So it's all about remembering what your duty of care is. The Health and Safety Executive website is a really, really good resource for you, because they have a whole section on what to do if you have pregnant staff from a health and safety point of view. And so my advice would be to make sure that you get down to the website and familiarise yourself with that section. And so one of the most important things that you need to know about is risk assessments. And a risk assessment is purely that, you're just assessing risk. Now, you should do risk assessments anyway for your staff, but obviously if you've got pregnant staff, then you need to do one for your pregnant member of staff. And so what it is really essentially is you're looking at your work environment and you're looking at things that could pose a problem, and then you look for solutions to those problems. So I've got a few examples here. A few examples are lone working or late night working, heavy lifting, things like being on the feet all day. So it's all about looking for solutions to minimise risk. So, for example, if somebody, if you're in a workplace where somebody works on their own for long periods of time, well, that probably won't be appropriate for somebody who's pregnant, because if something was to happen, she would be on her own and she wouldn't have any access to help. So it might be something as simple as, making sure that a supervisor or somebody checks on them every half an hour to an hour, or if they have a button that they can press. There are ways round. You can find common sense ways to make it a safer environment, or as safe environment as possible for somebody who is pregnant. Again, like I said, the Health and Safety Executive website has a whole dedicated section which will talk you through all the different types of workplaces, and so all of the kind of hazards and things that you need to look out for. And one point I should make actually is that this isn't, just an exercise that you tick boxes to say, oh yes, I've done it. You do need to take it seriously. And also it should be done more than once, because pregnancies progress, people get bigger, their babies get bigger, but maybe their demands and their needs change. So my advice would be to do it, at least twice, to make sure that the risk assessment is up to date. Also to note, very quickly, about sickness and absence. Now, you will have a sickness and absence policy, and depending on your policy, it may say something like, if somebody is sick more than 3 times in, I don't know, a 2-month period, that there is some kind of sickness monitoring. Now, when somebody is pregnant, if they are off with pregnancy-related illness, this cannot be recorded in the same normal way as regular sickness. This is one of the kind of entitlements or protections that pregnant women have. So if they are unable to work, or they have to leave work early for any reason, and it's due to pregnancy-related illness, it can't be recorded in the same way. You just have to kind of accept that that's the issue. If somebody is regularly sick or absent, then it's always a good idea to talk to them, to find out what's going on, to find out if there's anything that you can do to kind of make the situation better for them. But if they are off with pregnancy-related illness, it can't be recorded as regular sickness. So the second thing we need to talk about here is entitlements. Because pregnant women and women on maternity leave have certain special privileges or entitlements. And the reason that they are there is to protect them, because in the past, and unfortunately still today, some employers take advantage of their vulnerable position and try and make life difficult for them, and mistreat them in different ways, or subject them to discrimination essentially. And so they have certain protective entitlements. So these are things that they are entitled to purely because they're pregnant or maternity, but it's because they're in that protected period, because in the past they've been discriminated against. And so some of the things that they'll be entitled to are antenatal appointments. So that's any appointments with a hospital, with a GP, or anything to do with, anything to do with the baby, or anything to do with any kind of, medical attention for the mother or the baby. They're entitled to go to all those appointments, and they are entitled to be paid as normal. So if they need to take a morning off to go to a hospital, you can't deduct their pay or reduce their pay, and they don't have to make up the time either. Now, the thing to say with this is that most appointments are made in advance, at least a good few weeks in advance. So it's more than likely that you will know when they're going. It's very rare that, somebody comes in on Monday and says, oh, tomorrow I need to be at the hospital tomorrow morning, so I can't make the conference or whatever. It's very rare that happens. Usually, how hospitals work, things are booked well in advance, and it's the same with your pregnant staff. Now, you might find that somebody needs to go for an emergency appointment. Well, that's an emergency appointment. That's to be expected. Or if someone's having a particularly difficult pregnancy, they may have more regular appointments, and sometimes those might have short notice, but the principle is still the same. They are entitled to go to them. I know of, tribunal cases where women have been denied this right, and they've taken their employers to tribunal, and they've won on those points, because as an employer, you have to let them go to their hospital appointments. Again, it's that health and safety duty of care. They're entitled to go and check and make sure that everything's okay with their baby, and if they need treatment, they're entitled to go for it. So don't deny them the antenatal appointments. So the next thing to look at is maternity pay and leave. Now, there are several rates of maternity pay, and so the first one is statutory, which is a fixed amount, and it's the lowest amount that an employer can give to a woman, or enhanced, which is where you decide as a business, as a company, that you want to give something more. And so statutory maternity pay is 90% of their average earnings for a week for the first 6 weeks, and then for the next 33 weeks it is £139.58, or 90% of their average earnings, whichever is lower. All this information can be found on the gov.uk website, and I will put all the links in the worksheets that come with this video training, so you don't need to worry about trying to write all of this down. And so, like I said before, you as a company, you decide you're going to pay statutory or enhanced. Now, if you pay enhanced, you know, the world is your oyster in terms of what you might decide you want to give somebody. So here are a few examples. You might decide that you want to pay full pay for 4 months, and then statutory for 23 weeks, and then unpaid for the remainder of the time, remaining 13 weeks. Or you might decide, I know some organisations that pay full pay for 6 months, then they pay SMP for 13 weeks, and then it's unpaid for 13 weeks. It is entirely up to you. But what's important is that you are clear which one you decide, and you make sure that your members of staff know. The pay rises and bonuses. Now, this can be a bit of a tricky, contentious area, and I have seen a number of tribunal cases on this, where somebody is on maternity leave and the maternity leave falls in the period when they would have normally got a regular pay rise, or they were due a pay rise or a bonus, and because they are not in the workplace, their employers have decided not to give it to them. Now, that is discrimination, because what's happened here is they are being treated differently because they are pregnant or because they are on maternity leave. So the key thing you need to remember is that with pay rises and bonuses, it needs to be business as usual. Now, the Equality and Human Rights Commission do have specific guidance on their website. Again, excuse me, I will put the information in the worksheets so that you can read up on that. So there is guidance on what it is that you need to do, because that's quite a tricky area. It's also an area where employers don't realise that that's unlawful, that is, you know, that opens them up to all sorts of problems. So do remember, if somebody's entitled to any pay rises or bonuses, and it's during the time when they're off on maternity, then you need to ensure that my advice would be to read the guidance that the Equality and Human Rights Commission have got, and follow what they say. And the third and really, really important thing, and I think this is the area that probably has the most litigation, the area that most tribunal cases hinge on, is the fact that somebody goes on maternity leave and they come back and their job is gone. Now, either their job is gone or their job has been given to somebody else. Now, a woman on maternity is entitled to come back to the same job that they were in. The only exceptions are if there has been a genuine redundancy or a genuine restructure. Now, quite often, some unscrupulous employers have manufactured a redundancy, and then all of a sudden the only person that's been made redundant is the person that was on maternity leave. Or they've manufactured a restructure and suddenly the person that's on maternity leave, their job is gone. This is really, really common. And the problem with this is that it's A, unlawful, but B, it almost always ends up in tribunal, because sometimes it's so obvious that somebody has engineered and manufactured a situation. So the thing I want you to take away from this is that it's really, really important. That person's job needs to stay as is. When you hire maternity cover, they are simply that, maternity cover. If, however, there is a genuine redundancy situation, then providing it's genuine and the outcome isn't to try and get rid of a person, then obviously redundancy, you can go ahead with the redundancy. There are some special provisions as to what you do with pregnant members of staff and staff on maternity, and there is some guidance on this that I have co-written with ACAS, and again I will put those in the worksheet, and I would advise you to read those. So it's not to say that if there are redundancies you can't make a pregnant woman or a woman on maternity redundant, because you can, but there's a process to follow and it's important that you follow that process. So they are the sort of 4 main entitlements that you need to be mindful of when you're managing pregnant staff. And so the third thing, which is really, really important, is to remember to keep talking to your member of staff. The working relationship hasn't really changed. I'm always amazed at the number of friends or friends of friends that I know of that announce their pregnancy and then all of a sudden there's a problem with their work, or their working relationship with their line manager has changed, has altered, has gone sour, has gone bad, and suddenly, bad things happen to them. And I think it's important to remember that being pregnant, going maternity leave, is a short period in somebody's working career, and it doesn't have to mean the end of the working career or the end of the working relationship with you. They are still there. They're still doing the job. They're still showing up. They're still the same person that you were delighted with and adored and thought was amazing. They're still the same person. They may have they've got a few extra, additional responsibilities, but, keep talking to them. Another thing to remember is that it's important for you to get to know your maternity policy. Now, when somebody announces their pregnancy, one of the first things they ask is, what am I entitled to? What happens next? Now, your maternity policy is going to be your go-to document about what you do and how you look after your pregnant staff and staff on maternity. So my advice to you would be to get to know it. First of all, where is it? Is it hard copy only? Is it on the intranet? If you are a bigger firm and maybe you have an HR team, then is the maternity policy with them? The bottom line is you need to know where your policy is and get your hands on it. Tell your pregnant employee, give them a copy, and get to know it, because they'll be asking you questions. And I think it's important for you to feel comfortable with it and feel comfortable and confident about being able to answer those questions. So take the time out to read it. And if there's anything that you don't understand, go and find the person who's written it and ask them, or ask somebody whose job it is to know what the policy is supposed to say. Also, it's very important for you to be aware of both verbal and non-verbal negative attitudes. Now, it's fine for you to have an inside panic because somebody announces their pregnancy, and that's normal because you're going to start thinking about all the extra work that you have to do. And there is extra work, there's no getting around it. Obviously, it's all worth it. But you can't go around with panic in your eyes or talking about it negatively, or making, negative comments about somebody's pregnancy. So things like, oh God, I suppose you're going to want 12 months off, and oh, I suppose we'll have to pay you, or oh, this is going to make things so difficult for the business. All of that type of thing just creates an atmosphere, a culture of fear and negativity and paranoia. And that is the last thing that you want to do, because that just places a lot of burden and stress on your pregnant member of staff, and that can manifest in needing to take more time off, or it could affect their confidence in their work. All of these things are unnecessary and unavoidable, and the same goes for other people's attitudes to somebody's pregnancy. Once they've decided that they're going to tell everybody else, if you hear any negative chatter or comments about this person taking leave, so anything like, oh, Kate, she's only just arrived and now she's up the duff, all that type of thing, you need to nip all that type of thing in the bud, because that is where the seeds of mistrust and problems start. You were here in this training to avoid all of that. So you might think, oh, that's a little bit over the top, but it isn't. It's really important to set the tone, and the tone needs to be professional, supportive environment. That's not to say you have to jump up and down with joy, punch fists in the air and go, yeah, you're pregnant, brilliant, but just, simple congratulations, and, remain a professional stance as to what you do next and how you progress. That's all you need to do. Another thing that a lot of people, in my experience, don't do is they don't think about the maternity cover far enough in advance. And the double whammy, they don't involve their pregnant member of staff in it. And I think that is such a missed opportunity, because nobody knows the job better than the person that is already doing it. And so my advice to employers, and I'm always quite surprised when they say this, get them involved. Get them involved in updating the job description, because it's so easy to do a job for a length of time and for it to be completely different to what it says in the job description. Now, the idea of maternity cover is that you get the best person for the job for that amount of time. And so getting your existing member of staff involved, updating the job description, it's going to bring you leaps and bounds ahead in terms of finding the right person. You could even, if you wanted to, have them as a silent observer in the interview room. You could ask them either to maybe draft some interview questions. Obviously, you don't have to use them, or you could ask for their input in terms of, what type of information should we be looking for in a candidate that's going to take over your job. I think it's a mistake to not involve the existing member of staff in the cover. I know personally of friends who've left for maternity and just said to me, I don't know what they're doing with maternity cover. No one's mentioned it to me, and they always feel a bit miffed and a bit puzzled. And the problem with leaving them out is that it kind of starts to sow the seeds of that idea of distance, that idea of, well, you're no longer in the workplace, so it's none of your business. That isn't true, especially if the job revolves around, looking after clients and accounts. That person takes pride in their work and they want to hand it over to the best person. They want to prepare the business to be able to function without them in the best possible way, but knowing that they're going to come back to their old job. And so I would highly, highly recommend involving a staff member. And the plus side of involving them at this stage is that it gives you the opportunity to casually talk about what their plans are. Obviously, they need to tell you if they decide if they're going to take 6 months off or 9 months or 12 months or whatever. They need to formally inform you of that. But involving them in the maternity cover process means that you can talk about these things in a friendly and relaxed manner. It also means that you can kind of work backwards and start to plan ahead how you want to do something. So, for example, Jane says that she says that she's going off in August. Okay, so she's going off in August and she's going to take 9 months. So you say, okay, well, if you go off on August the 10th, we would like to have a week where there's a handover period where your maternity cover and you are still here. So you might say, okay, so this person needs to start on the 5th or whatever. And you'd be able to work your way backwards. So then you can say, okay, right, so we need to, assume that they're already in a job and they need to give notice. They might need a month, okay, and work backwards. We need time to get references, okay. We need time, we need to set the interview dates and to sift through the interviews. We need to place the job adverts. And before you know it, you needed to have started the recruitment process back in April. And this helps to, alleviate the stress and the panic of having to do it, because you've involved your staff member from the beginning and they've been able to give you information, and little nuggets of advice about, about the job role or specific clients or whatever. So the bottom line is, I won't talk about it anymore. Involve them. There's a lot of benefits to keep talking to your staff members, so involve them in the maternity cover. And remember, if there was one sentence, if I had to sum up my message in one sentence on everything that I do, it's this: remember that this is a short time in a woman's career. It is not forever. Me, for example, I'm 36. I had a baby 2.5 years ago. I took 12 months maternity leave. I have been working since I was 22. I would like to have another baby. I may take another 12 months, I don't know. But I'm probably going to be working till I'm in my late 60s. So from 22 to late 60s, it's 40 odd years. I'm going to take 2 years out to look after a baby. That is nothing. That is a drop in the ocean when you consider how long a woman's career is. And so even though you might be anxious about the extra admin, you might be anxious about making mistakes, you might be anxious about, getting something wrong or having to make some changes to the way that you run your business to accommodate women. It's such a tiny, tiny, tiny time frame that I think it's really short-sighted to adopt a defensive position of, actually, this is too much like hard work and I don't want her to have anything to do with her. I'm just going to look for somebody else who doesn't have babies. It's very, very short-sighted, because the thing is that if you treat your pregnant staff well and you treat your maternity returners well, you increase the chances of them staying with you for a long time. You increase that employee loyalty. You get your return in terms of the personal development and investment in their career that you are investing in them. And you open up the possibilities of them really progressing in your business and making your business money. You don't know how far somebody can go if you clip their wings, if you clip them because they have a child. Okay, so remember, yes, there's extra admin, but the extra admin is only for a short amount of time. It's not forever. That's a key message that I want you to remember. Which leads nicely into the fourth point, which is, this is all about long-term vision. Women have babies. Fact. So prepare for it. We prepare for all sorts of things. You take out all kinds of insurance, like cyber attack insurance, you take out buildings insurance, you take out professional indemnity, public liability. You take out all these insurances for things that might happen. Well, here's the thing that might happen. A woman might have a baby. So prepare for it. It doesn't have to be uber stressful. It doesn't have to be very expensive. It doesn't even have to be difficult. You will or may face some business challenges in trying to fit it into your business, trying to fit, working mums and dads into your business. But you can prepare for that. You can mitigate that by, being prepared. So things like making sure your maternity policies are up to date. When was the last time you looked at it? I know of organisations who have a maternity policy that they've downloaded, that they bought for like £60 or something off the internet when there were 5 people in the workplace. They are now, businesses of, 30 plus people, and they have more women coming through the doors. And I say to them, okay, when was the last time you looked at your maternity policy? And they say, 5 years ago. And I say to them, well, it's time that you looked at it again. It might have suited you then when you either didn't have any women or you didn't have very many, but does it suit you now? You're actively looking to recruit more women, or you're noticing that more women are coming through that are, good enough to do the job, then you need to look at your maternity policies. So look at them and make sure that they're up to date. Make sure that your line managers either have regular training or have access to guidance and advice on what to do. That's always very, very helpful, so you don't have to have that that sense of panic. And staff surveys. I'm surprised at the number of organisations that don't do staff surveys, but you can find out so much information about your current practices, or even things that you want to implement, because it's easy to sit and write a policy in isolation and go, okay, we've crunched the numbers, we've looked at our business, and this is what we want to offer. But how it actually feels to be on the receiving end can be very different. And sometimes, you don't think about what it is that you're trying to achieve versus what it is that you actually have. And sometimes there's a mismatch. And so doing a simple survey costs you time more than anything, but the information will be like gold dust as to how it's being received and if it's working and is it delivering the business vision that you want. So they are really good ways to prepare in advance, prepare your business in advance. Now think about your brand reputation and retention. In a savvy social media world, there isn't much that's private anymore. And so as a business, you're always looking for ways to set yourself apart. And maternity policies, good maternity policies are a simple but effective way of setting yourself apart. Now there is actually a website, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but I will put it in the worksheet, where people rate their maternity policies. Now it's done anonymously, so somebody will put in, their details, but it's done anonymously, and they will state the name of the company, and they will state what's in the maternity policy or the parental leave policy. I think because it's American as well as UK. I think it's American at the moment, but there will be a UK version. And so you might find that your business maternity policy is being rated on there, and you might find that it's not looking very good. Now, when people are looking for jobs or they're thinking of moving, these things are important. People don't just look at the remuneration, but they look at the benefits as well. And one of the things that could set somebody apart or a business apart is their maternity benefits. And so this is especially important if you know that you have an issue either with pregnant staff, or women come back off maternity leave and they don't come back, essentially. So think about your brand reputation. Do you want to be that firm that just pays SMP because it's just easy to do and it's the least that you can do? Do you want to be known as the organisation that treats their pregnant staff and maternity returners badly? I mean, I can think of one big UK supermarket, and I won't name names, but I know from friends of people that work there, that they treat maternity returners appallingly. Now, I know this. It would be interesting to see if, if that information becomes wider public knowledge, and it would be interesting to see what impact that would have. And it might not have an impact now, or when it's revealed, but in years to come, this could be, a stick to be beaten with, as it were. So, you need to think about your public image. There isn't much that's private these days, so think about what your maternity policies say, and also think about what your line managers actually do. And think about the numbers. Crunch the numbers, do the maths. There was a report out last year that says that it costs on average around £30,000 to recruit a new member of staff. And that's when you add up all the costs. So the costs of, doing all the job descriptions, placing the adverts, conducting the interviews, doing all the references, the induction training, and then 6 months of the person being in the job. Now, £30,000, that number could be higher or lower depending on the organisation. But either way, the bottom line is this: it's not cheap to recruit staff. But also, that number doesn't include the lost expertise of the person that's left and taken all their knowledge with them, all the training that you've invested in them. It also doesn't include, the potential costs if you are taken to tribunal because of, claims of discrimination. And so, if you do get into a bit of a panic about having pregnant staff, and you do kind of think, oh God, look at all this extra work I have to do, I don't want to do it, then at least think about these things. Think about your brand reputation and think about the cost. Especially if you're taken to tribunal, because that is when you don't have any control or influence over the costs, because they can escalate. Anything can happen at tribunal and those costs can escalate. And so what you need to really consider is, what is the financial imprint that's left if a woman leaves due to discrimination? Can your business afford this once? And can it afford it over and over again? So what next? Now, you may feel like the guy in the picture, and you may think, oh God, that was 40 odd minutes of, oh my God, so much. And, obviously I can't lie to you, there is a lot to take in, and there is a skill to getting it right, but it is worth doing right. And the thing is that once you've done it right once, it just becomes part of your business practice, and it becomes the norm, and it becomes easier to do, and you will see the benefits. It may take a while for those benefits to trickle in, but if you've got that long-term business vision, which is all about plugging your business leaks, keeping the best staff, and staying out of employment tribunals, then it's worth it. And so what next? Now, I don't like to do training or, video training or workshops where I kind of throw information at you, expect you to write it all down, and then just leave you to get on with it. I believe in helping you walk the walk, because this can be tricky and it can be difficult. As you know, if you were to look at tribunal papers, you would see, companies being taken to tribunal for, the smallest misdemeanors right up to, colluding and trying, really trying to get somebody out. And so I want to be able to be of service and to walk with you and to hold your hand, because each business will have different needs, and I feel that it's my job to cater to what you need, to make sure that you stay out of tribunal, to make sure that you attract and keep your best staff, your maternity returners, and to plug those business leaks. And so with that in mind, I've developed 3 packages that are only for people that attend my face-to-face workshops or have downloaded this training. And so I'll run you through all 3 of them. The first one is what I call the Platinum package. Now this is the kind of all singing, all dancing package, and it might be useful for you if you know absolutely nothing but you want all the help that you can get. Or it might be useful for you if you think, well, I really need to get to grips with this, but I don't really have the staff or the time to do most of the legwork myself. I need to get someone else in. This is perfect for you. So I will run through very quickly what you get with that. So with the Platinum package, you get 12 months phone and email support, and that's capped at 20 hours a month. And so after going through this training, you'll probably have a lot of questions. I don't doubt that for a second, because obviously this is very short in comparison to all the things that I could teach you, so there's obviously going to be lots more questions. And so you've got 12 months phone and email support. Now, I talked about staff surveys before, and with this package I will run a staff survey for you of your maternity policy, your flexible working policy, and if you have one, a shared parental leave policy. Now once I've done the survey, I will put together a report on what the findings are. We will have a discussion about how to update them, and I will update them for you. I will also do a kit and split day and phased return to work templates. That wasn't something that was covered in the training, but a kit or split day is essentially when somebody's on maternity leave or shared parental leave, they have a certain number of days when they can come back into the office to kind of get themselves back up to speed, and this is done officially before they start work, before their maternity leave or shared parental leave is over. And there are various ways that this can be done, and so I will write a template for you so you can, with your employee, decide how you want to do it. There's also phased return to work, which is again what it says is it eases somebody back into work, because it's difficult to be out of the workplace for such a long time to just go bam straight back in. And so again, I will write a template for you. I will also do a template maternity handover book. Now this is what I was talking about when I was saying involving your existing member of staff with a maternity cover. One of the things I advise all my employers to do is to get them to prepare a maternity handover book. So this is where they will put information about their clients, their accounts, what it is that they do in their job, phone numbers that they need to know, emails they need to know, people that you need to talk to, things that are happening in the coming year, all this valuable information. It's a good idea to have it stored somewhere in your business, and so I call it a maternity handover book, and I will give you a template which you can give to your employee to complete. And also this package comes with 3 half-day on-site or external trainings. So this is where I will deliver face-to-face training. These are 3 half-day trainings that can be spread over the 12 months, anytime over the 12 months. One of them is in developing your shared parental leave policy. If you already have one, it will be about implementing and evaluating it. The other one will be about managing maternity returners. And also the third one is about managing flexible working requests, because they are the key areas that a lot of organisations have problems with. So I think it's useful to have some training for line managers on those 3 areas. And lastly, with this package, I will also include a maternity cover plan. So this is where, when you're doing your maternity cover, I will review your adverts to make sure that they are legally sound. There's nothing unlawful written in them. I'll review your job descriptions, I will provide you with interview coaching, and I'll help you with interview sifting and selection support. And so that's the Platinum package. Now the cost for that package is £4,000 plus VAT. So it's a very comprehensive package where I'm doing a lot of hand holding with you. Like I said before, very useful for people who might feel quite overwhelmed but don't have the time to do everything themselves. So the silver package is similar, but with this one you get 6 months phone and email support, so that's for 10 hours a month. Again, I'll do a staff survey and report on your current maternity and flexible working policy, and I will update them as well. So once a survey is done, once a report is done, we will have a discussion about the findings, talk about how you feel about what's come out, talk about how you want to move your business forward, and I will update your policies for you in that way. Now with this package, there is training, but this time it's going to be webinar training, and this will be live. So this will be, where several members of staff can attend the training, sat at your desk or at your computer, and I will stream the training live. You can ask me questions and interact. This will be on hiring maternity cover, managing maternity returners, and managing multiple flexible working requests. And again, also would have the templates on the phased return to work and kit day plans. And this package is £1,000 plus VAT. So that's for 6 months support. And the last package is probably for those people who either kind of want to dip their toe in the water, or they feel confident about most things but they just want a little bit of assistance. And so this is where I'll provide 2 months phone and email support, and that's capped at 5 hours a month. I will review and update your maternity and flexible working policy, and I will provide you with a pre-recorded video training on how to successfully recruit maternity cover. So it's very simple, those 3 things, and this one is £450 plus VAT. So let's talk. I've talked for around 46 minutes, which is quite a long time. I hope that this has been useful for you, and I hope that it has given you an idea of the mindset and the approach that you need to have if you are serious about managing pregnant staff and maternity return as well, and if you're serious about staying out of employment tribunal. Now, I imagine that you're going to have lots of questions, and so there are several ways that you can get in touch with me. The first is you can book a 30-minute chat with me, where we can either talk about anything that's come up in the training or talk about any of those packages. If you are interested and you want to know more, I don't expect you to just go, yep, I want that package, I'm just going to buy it. I think it's good for us to actually talk, because obviously this is pre-recorded, and I would like to get to know you and your business a bit better and make sure that we're a good fit. And so I have a link on the screen there. If you were to copy that link, it will take you straight to my calendar, and I've got times where you can book for us to talk about one of the packages. If you simply have a question and you want to pick my brain about a specific situation, whether it's to do with maternity leave or rates of pay, or a question about your policy, or you've got a particular problem and you don't know where to turn, then please do email me. My email address is at the bottom there, or you can phone me. If I'm not available, I have voicemail on my phone, and all you need to do is just leave a message and I will get back to you as soon as possible. So I really hope that I haven't overwhelmed you. I really hope that you've found it useful and that you've taken away lots of useful nuggets of information. There are worksheets to go with this training, so please do download those, make notes, and if you have any questions about anything, then please do not hesitate to get in touch. And I hope to hear from you soon. Bye for now.